As a continuation of my review of the Hrabe, I left this book as a standalone review, which I think it deserves. This is a heavy, thick book that Eduard made, and it is a part of the Hrabe Limited Edition. I don't know how else you will be able to get that. Probably contact the author. Now, this is it. This is made in 2023. This is a pictorial representation of the Czechoslovak Su-25 and some events during their service. This is 80s. Here we have some leftovers of the printing process. This is very nice. Old pictures. Unfortunately, everything is in Czech, and I assume that not more than 10, maybe 12 million people on the planet speak that language. But thankfully we have Google Translate via Google Lens, which you can use to translate this. The pictures here are indispensable. Check out the chalk artwork. The artwork, which was probably the best you can squeeze out of the communist era, Soviet air bases and their strict security and information obscurity rules. Plenty of information thus far, and we are at the very beginning of the book. Of course, photos are black and white, but there is no other way around that, because in the 80s, if you live in Japan, Western Europe, United States, Canada, you probably were another residue, I'm sorry. You probably were familiar and owned a color camera, but in Eastern Europe, that was luxury. So the pictures that you see here are in color, but they are rather rare and mostly from the late 80s, early 90s. Nevertheless, beautiful. It gives perfect idea about how Su-25 looked in Czechoslovak service. I only wish that I could read it in the original language, because there are always something lost in translation. And I read aviation mostly in English, but then I can read it in Russian, I can read it also partially in Italian, and of course in my native Bulgarian, which is somewhat close to Russian. But in English is best always, because the simplicity of the language and the popularity of the information, because the best information sources are usually in English. Now, the most attractive paint scheme here is the frog, the tank killer frog, which is included in this set, and this is very nicely depicted here. If you wonder about the history of that frog, if you see the hangar doors here are painted in similar colors. They are not only similar, they are equal. And they are equal because in Czech Republic they used those colors to design the frog. I believe the Eduard gave a description about that in their manual about painting. but I can confirm that my information is the same. The difference is that those colors were applied with what is called dust paint process, which the surfaces are prepped in different way, and this is very tough paint. As you can see, this has no maintenance whatsoever, and still, besides the color of the color has changed during the years because of the sun, but it's still there, which with regular paints won't be the case for sure. Beautiful pictures in flight. This is rare for the period again. The pictures back then, those you can see, are very interesting and very valuable, because the pictures back then were made with a permission. Actually, they were made but published with permission of the people who were responsible for the security. You had no right to disclose valuable information, like, for example, MiG-25 were always shot at an angle from which you cannot tell what plane that is. And to some extent, this continued till the end of the 80s. As you can see, things slowly started to change. People started to apply some artwork, and they actually turned the planes into art themselves, which we now consider a standard and take as granted. That was not the case back then. Okay, L-39. That was the standard Soviet, it's a Czech aircraft, but for the Soviet bloc that was the standard jet trainer. And now, 3-4 decades later, Tom Cruise flies one. Hard to believe, but you know. Here are the colors that I was talking about. This is from this, and those were actually hangar paints. Check out the difference. Worn and not so worn appearance. This is a beautiful book. It's more of a photo album, and I doubt that the video will give justification to the quality of this, but trust me, this is worth every cent. Even if I was able to buy that for the price of the aircraft itself, I mean the kit, of course, I would have, because this, even in unknown language for me, this is something that you must have in your archive. This is beautiful. There are no overly many close-up and details. Nevertheless, the planes, it somewhat catches the time, especially if you live through it. So this is indispensable. Now look, this is very nice. The wings of the Su-25 are attached in a slightly different manner. You have to align each wing very carefully. The assembly is made in an unusual way. It is designed that way. So it gives you the idea here. Oh, armament. This information you gotta translate. This is allegedly for air-to-air combat, but Su-25 is not overly maneuverable plane. So, if you ask me, this is a ridiculous add-on. This is a tough aircraft, but it's a simplistic idea. It's not as sophisticated as A-10, although it's probably more rugged. However, it is a, let's say, dumb tool of war. This is not smart aircraft by any means, and only the SM-3 and the Bulgarian upgrades, as well as I think the Israeli with Georgia made a Scorpion edition of the Su-25. That was different. Those were 70s kind of a aircraft, but still they fly to this day. So the idea, as far as I know, came from YA-9 Scorpion. Russians got satellite photos of the upper wing twin engine aircraft, and they got the idea, redesigned it, and made their own plane. And I think the 8 prototype, if I'm not mistaken, was the spot-on thing. But still, 40-something years later, this is in almost every major conflict. This here, I showed you in the other videos, decals. It's brilliant. It's Eduard made a fantastic job, both with the colors, with the decals. This will be tough job because it's a big one to be placed, but with decal solutions, you should be fine. This picture here, I hope you can see it. This is a typical picture of the Su-25 at the time. When we were kids, we were in love with that plane for whatever reason. I find it so very ugly nowadays. I love fast jets, and Su-25 looks like a hammer more than a sleek, sexy jet. But we loved it back in the day. Slovak Air Force. I think those went to Georgia, but I might be wrong. So, superb book. This is one of a kind. This by itself, as I said, worth buying the kit. It's fantastic. Thank you, Eduard, for doing this. I appreciate it highly. I know you are doing a MiG-21 F-13, of which Czechoslovak Republic produced their own. I sincerely hope you will add something like this in the upcoming kit. If you don't, we all gonna miss that. So once again, beautiful. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.